In addition to the proper performance of the macroeconomic variables, inflation, interest rate, exchange rate, and fiscal balance, economic productivity depends significantly on the amount of capital a nation has. You may consider that capital refers only to financial assets, but as Samuelson and Nordhaus stated in their popular textbook, it also refers to those durable produced goods that are, in turn, used as productive inputs for further production. Let's start with financial capital, which means talking about the financial system. Productivity governance seeks several objectives concerning the financial system. The first and most important of them is to encourage savings. Through savings, society builds up financial capital and can undertake far-reaching productive initiatives. However, savings stored under the mattress or in a safe aren't of much use either. Therefore, the second objective is to incentivize investment. When savings become an investment, they develop their true potential because resources are made available to the productive system. Finally, as controversial as it may seem, the third goal is to encourage debt. When we talk about debt, we mean credit, which is to say consumer loans. Credit has incredible potential for productivity, primarily because of the financial system's ability to multiply printed money. But, of course, debt is the riskiest side of the system. In fact, it's responsible for a significant part of the great recessions that many prosperous countries have experienced. The financial system's correct performance depends on monetary stability. However, beyond a stable behavior of inflation, the interest rate, and the exchange rate, several additional elements help a country incentivize savings, credit, and investment. The International Monetary Fund measures the development of the financial system through an indicator called the Financial Development Index. Ultimately, it measures the capacity of the financial system to encourage national savings and convert them into investment. It does so by a twofold assessment. On the one hand, it evaluates financial institutions and, on the other, the stock market. In both cases, it measures depth, access, and efficiency. It produces indicators from 0 to 1. Let's look at how our sample of countries are doing in the Financial Development Index over a 100 scale. You can see that the country that has the best financial development is Switzerland, with 93. This good performance is explained especially by its financial institutions, with a score of 97, a little less by the stock market, with only 87 points. Still, in both aspects, it has a remarkable performance. The global average of the index is 33, and what we see in the graph is that most countries in our selection are above that average. However, globally, the gap between the performance of institutions and the stock market is fairly wide, scoring the former 45 versus 22 of the latter. Moreover, this ample spread is also the case for almost every country. A remarkable exception is the United States, where the stock market performs better than the financial institutions. In general, when we take an overview of the results, we see that the countries we perceive as most prosperous have the best scores. At the regional level, there are no surprises, both the OECD and the European Union with high financial development. In all regions, without exception, the development of financial institutions is above that of the stock market. The historical data of the world average is equally eloquent. Financial development has improved in the more than 3 decades of the series, but always the development of financial institutions is above that of the stock market, and all have grown approximately 10 points over this time. Traditionally, the word capital is used to refer exclusively to financial capital. However, the study of productivity has identified other fundamental elements to strengthen productivity, which we can also understand as capital. They are skilled labor or human capital, a society's ability to innovate or technological capital, and infrastructure or physical capital. Let's look at each of them. The 1979 Nobel Prize in Economics, Theodore Schultz, defined human capital as the knowledge and skills that people possess which allow them to create value in the economic system. In 2019, the World Bank, in its World Development Report, takes a closer look at the impact that technological change is having on the labor market and job development, and concludes that individuals should prepare to have not only several jobs but even several careers or career developments, because not only does longevity mean that we have a longer productive life but, especially, the rapid technological change that is being witnessed, presents the threat of making our knowledge obsolete. And in this sense, it recommends that tertiary education providers generate a threshold of cognitive skills transferable from career to career, as the best vaccine against knowledge obsolescence and for the uncertainty that technological change produces. With its competitiveness index, the World Economic Forum measures human capital through the concept of skills. This measurement evaluates several of the elements of human capital. These are the extent of staff training, the quality of vocational training, the skill set of graduates, the digital skills among the active population, and the ease of finding skilled employees. The indicator receives a score from 0 to 100. Let's see how our sample of countries fares in skills. Switzerland is again in the lead with 78 points, and the world average is 52. The countries that we perceive with the greatest prosperity have the highest skills rating. This is the case of Singapore, the Netherlands, the United States, and the least developed are in the last places, Nigeria, Brazil, and Ethiopia. At the regional level, the OECD countries and the European Union top the list, and Sub-Saharan Africa and Latin America and the Caribbean occupy the last two places. To have a historical vision of the development of human capital, we can look at the time series of tertiary enrollment. In the graph, we see how from 1970 to 2018, there has been a magnificent growth in the proportion of higher education enrollment, which went from 10% to 40%. These are great news for global productivity. On the other hand, technological innovation makes it possible to have more efficient production processes. This is doing more with less or equal amount of resources, or producing less environmental impact. The Competitiveness Index also brings a measure of innovation, with which it evaluates three components: diversity and collaboration, research and development, and commercialization. This indicator takes values again from 0 to 100. Our selection of countries is headed by Japan, with a perfect score. The most productive countries are in the first places: Germany, the United States, South Korea, France. The world average is 36, and most of our sample is above this average. The list is also closed with the least productive countries, Jamaica and Cameroon. At the regional level, the OECD leads, followed by the European Union, and Sub-Saharan Africa closes the list. The historical perspective is assessed with the number of patents per 100,000 inhabitants filed in each country. We can see that world's innovation hasn't stopped during this time, reaching almost treble. Finally, we have the infrastructure or physical capital. This refers to goods such as electric power plants, highways, railways, ports, airports, information and communication technologies such as satellites and fiber optics, etc. All these goods help society to produce on a larger scale, but they are also public goods to some degree, that is to say that their consumption is either non-rival or non-divisible, so their markets have failures. Therefore, it's appropriate that productivity governance intervenes in their production to optimize it. Researchers have shown that infrastructure mainly facilitates productivity. However, it has been very challenging for many countries to create the desirable infrastructure since it's expensive, takes time, and requires a lot of management. The World Economic Forum's Competitiveness Index provides a valuable measure of each country's infrastructure level. On the one hand, they review the transport infrastructure, in which they score the connectivity and quality of the roads, railroad density, efficiency of train services, airport connectivity, the efficiency of air transport services, liner shipping connectivity, and efficiency of seaport services. On the other hand, they assess the utilities infrastructure, including access and supply quality of electricity, exposure to unsafe drinking water, and water supply reliability. The indicator takes values from 0 to 100. With that in mind, let's see how our selection of countries is doing. The best infrastructure is in Singapore, and the global average is 64. Most of our countries are above average. At the bottom of the list are Nigeria and Cameroon. Overall, we see a clear affinity between infrastructure and productivity. In the context of regions, the OECD and the European Union are at the top, and the countries south of the Sahara and Asia close the list. To get an idea of the importance of these three elements in productivity, it's worth mentioning that the correlation coefficient with the GDP of skills is 0.74, of innovation is 0.73, and of infrastructure is 0.68.